All right, we're just going to imagine a cool introduction song because we don't have one normally, but it is Veterans Day on November 11th, 2024. I got my guy Adam here in the house on Earn It All podcast.
Yesterday was my birthday.
With the what? I didn't know
my
that.
Birthday, yeah.
No, it wasn't.
It's the Marine Corps birthday.
Oh my God.
November 10th, 1775.
Once a Marine, always a freaking Marine. I love it, actually. That's pretty cool. So today we're going to cover some current topics. We're going to hit some stuff in the biohacker, health, fitness realm, but also we're going to talk some politics. We're going to talk whatever the hell we want because there is a lot going on in the world.
There's a lot going on.
And we're going to talk about it, whatever we want to talk about, because this is our podcast. So Adam's got his orange glasses on today. Yeah, I think that officially means there's no rules when you have no glasses on.
There's no rules.
Let's just hit it hot and heavy right off the bat. Recently a guy named Tony Hinchcliffe, if you say it right. Hinchcliffe. Yeah. Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
Got his name wrong. Yeah. He was speaking at a Trump rally and essentially made a joke about Puerto Rico being a big floating pile of trash or something. And people thought that he was just going off and saying that, randomly he didn't like Puerto Rican people and whatnot. And my initial opinion was like, well, I mean, okay, maybe you don't need comedians at a political rally. Like I was like, it's kind of like an edgy thing. But then I was like, it's actually kind of neat because it just shows what kind of people could come to that movement. You have Hulk Hogan, you have comedians, but then you also have like Elvita King, Martin Luther King's niece, and you have, pastors and a wide range of people coming out to these rallies. But he made the joke about Puerto Rico being a big pile of floating trash. And I didn't realize until I looked into it that there's actually a lot of substance to that. So I'm going to read you a couple things, Adam, about that. The landfills over in Puerto Rico, and this is all new to me, and I think it's fascinating, but I've looked this up in multiple different ways, are over capacity. And 12 of the 29 landfills of Puerto Rico have even been ordered to close for environmental concerns by the EPA. On top of that, there have been hurricanes like Irma and Maria that just ripped all sorts of trees apart, broke a bunch of buildings and cars and like all this stuff. And they were already over capacity with their trash landfills. This is like a known thing, I guess. And then these hurricanes hit. So it really is experiencing a heavy trash problem. When I read that, I was like, actually, I kind of respect the joke more now because there was more to it. It wasn't just let me pick on some random island with people on it and like call them trash. It was like, no, that's actually a floating pile of trash. And now at least me and whoever's listening to this are going to realize, oh no, there actually is a trash problem down there. So I think it was actually kind of a smart joke. Now, was it great politically? I wouldn't have done it. I think, I probably just would have rolled with more positivity and stuff like that. But again, he's a comedian. That's what he's supposed to do. They burn people. That's comedians do.
The comedians have been doing this for, 50 years. You tell a joke and it has some sort of cultural backing to it to get people to understand that whatever that thing is either something that you're passionate about or that it's an issue in the world, or maybe it's just that it's really funny too.
Yeah.
It's like we forgot that comedy is supposed to be funny too. And it's like, I know a couple Puerto Rican guys and they thought it was funny. Yeah. They're like, yeah, fucking, we know it's trash. Like,
and I totally loved how it made the left kind of be like anti-comedy. I was like, I don't think you want to be on that side. Yep. Like everybody likes a good comedian. It doesn't even have to be political, but they just like a good comedian because they say stuff that they can't say. They say things that make you feel uncomfortable and uneasy, and you get kind of that kind of worried, laugh. But that's what they do. Like Daniel Tosh is super popular for saying like, it's funny because it's racist, like, I could never say the stuff he says. I don't want to. I don't even think like that. But when you hear someone else say it, it's like the shock value. Howard Stern's whole thing is a shock jock. That's what these guys do. So anyways, but I wanted to just give even just a little bit more credit to him coming up with that joke, because now I'm looking at Puerto Rico like, shit, we actually have a problem that we can fix down there for those people. And I don't know how many people would have realized that if that joke had not occurred.
Yeah, when he said pile of trash, I thought he was talking about California.
Yeah, so. No, I know. I left that pile of trash a long time ago. No, you're racist against Californians.
Yes, absolutely we are.
Yeah.
And they should definitely secede from the union and become their own country. Newsom, you heard me. Yep. Go ahead. Do it. Be your own country. It's totally fine.
It's not a bad idea, because if they do that, then we as the United States could take it over and just do what we want with it.
Exactly.
Because that land is beautiful. Man, California is such a wonderful place for growing food, all sorts of agriculture. The climate's amazing. It's beautiful, all this stuff. And they make it so people don't even want to live there. You grew up there.
Yep.
I lived there for 14 years. I got married in La Jolla. Like, I love California as like a land mass, like what it has to offer, especially climate wise. But I don't even want to visit anymore. So there definitely needs to be something done about California.
I think when all the weird Hollywood fucks move to Austin, because that's where they're going now. Austin is supposedly going to be the new Hollywood. I think when they all move, we can just all move back in.
Yeah. Sorry, Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
You know, here's the funny thing that a lot of people don't know. California wasn't like the riches of California. It has such riches underneath the earth and oil and all this stuff, but a lot of people don't understand that the riches of that, like the valley area, like LA and all that, wasn't built on Hollywood. It was actually built on oil. So if you look at old pictures of like Huntington Beach was covered in oil derricks. And this is actually a really, really funny thing. Beverly Hills High School has a giant tower in the middle of their like quad area where like the kids come and eat lunch and stuff. And it's called Peace Tower. And they have like peace signs all over it and all this stuff. And it's like super weirdo, you know, all the weirdo fucking Hollywood kids with their weird haircuts and stuff that don't know what gender they are and everything, or eating lunch. They don't understand there's an oil derrick underneath that tower right now that's still pumping oil. That area was built on oil, and it's still like receiving the benefits of oil.
What are the La Brea tar pits?
I'm not 100% certain. I think that's just hydrocarbon that
maybe we should look that
bubbled up from the earth. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I was just wondering if that had anything to do with oil.
I mean, California is oil rich as all get out. And, you know, offshore even, the problem before is that the ocean was too deep there and there was no deep water drilling going on yet. We were actually, I used to work for Oceaneering, and we were actually looking at helping to design a deep water system that could go to 12,000 feet of water. That's a lot. There's a lot of pressure down there. You have to, you have to make the valves the right way. I mean, these are huge valves. They're like, stainless steel blocks like this, just to manage the amount of pressure that, it takes to go to 12,000 feet to operate a blowout prevention system and all that stuff that goes in the oil on the wellhead. But they got all that stuff developed and everything. And then California was basically like, we don't want any drilling off the coast. And it's like, well, how come? How come? Because the BP oil spill. And then it's like, okay, let's talk about that real quick. I know it's not current events, but everybody remembers the BP oil spill. I worked in the oil field for a couple of years, and I understand a couple of things, right? Number one, the hydrocarbon that leaked out of the actual wellhead, that was not poisonous to the water. It was not poisonous to the fish. It's hydrocarbon. It's always leaking from the seafloor in different areas and stuff like that. All the pictures that people saw of all the stuff on the water, that was the shit the EPA dropped to try to get the hydrocarbons to drop to the bottom of the ocean floor, where it killed a bunch of shit on the ocean floor. All the stuff that happened on the shore over there, that was all the stuff from the cleanup chemicals that they dumped.
Wow.
It wasn't from the hydrocarbon, the naturally occurring hydrocarbon. It wasn't oil like, you take and put in your car.
Yeah.
It's hydrocarbon. It was unfiltered, unrefined hydrocarbon. That's always like if an earthquake happens and the fucking earth opens up, like it's just
out
fucking hydrocarbon. That's it. So anyways.
No, that's interesting, because most of the time we have no clue what the truth and reality is of any headline or any big story, especially when there's money and power involved. And there's certainly a ton of money involved with the environment, with the EPA, with oil and all that stuff. So I just gave a speech this morning to my daughter's school. Like I said, it's Veterans Day, so they had a Veterans Day event. And one of the things that I told them, I gave them 4 things to basically help them as they get older and grow out of their high school. One of them was to stay curious and ask a lot of questions and never be the person that, claims to know everything. And then the second one was critical thinking. And I mentioned those two because that can apply to this as well. Like any headline you see, especially if there's some sort of money or power or influence involved with it, and chances are if it's on the news, all of those things apply.
Yep.
You need to be curious. You need to apply critical thinking skills and then take what you read, sure, from the news. But then when you start to look it up and you talk to your friends, you talk to whoever, get all that information and really see what passes the sniff test. See if it sounds correct. Start to form your own opinion. So that's what I told these kids today. And I think if they could do that, I mean, that's going to help them understand like what's actually going on in the world. But even just to understand like why we see so much propaganda that is trying to make us think a certain way. Like, don't just take it as gospel. Think about it. Apply what you've learned and see what you think about it.
How very right-wing extremist of you.
I know. Damn it. Well, yeah, cool.
Because critical thinking is, for some reason, is extremist.
Yeah, well, at least it's not math.
Yeah.
You know? Heaven forbid. Okay, so it is November 11th. This is crazy. We are less than a week now from the election when Donald Trump just smashed the election. And when I say smashed, I think everybody knows by now, but electoral blowout, 312, only needed 270, won the popular vote by millions of votes. Last time I checked, is around 4 million or so.
I think it's 7 million is the official number.
See where it lands.
Yeah.
Also won a Senate majority, which we did not have. And most likely, I think it's about an 80% chance right now, we're still counting votes, are also going to have a House majority. I think also, though, one of the most impressive things is that he made some of the largest gains for a Republican in many decades across the country. Yep. They're like the most Hispanic county in the U.S. is down in Texas. I forget the name of it now.
Rio Grande?
I forget the name of it, but like he got like basically a majority voted for him. There was these districts that are all across the country that like had not been Republican since like one of them was like 1890. Got it. Like it was an unbelievable victory. And I wanted to tee that up because one of the things that I thought was that is so powerful, especially going forward, is media. Old media, call it legacy media, is dead. We are talking on one of the new media platforms right now, a podcast. And this has never been more apparent to more people than right now, I think because of the election that we just went through. And we can talk about Joe Rogan for a minute because Donald Trump went on Joe Rogan. It's probably going to be the highest watched YouTube video of all time.
Is it right now?
It's going to catch up, I think, to probably the other one. But a couple things that were so cool about that podcast was, and this is what I took away from listening to it and watching it on YouTube. When you have a candidate sit down for 3 hours like that, and they're not just asked the same old stupid questions you get from the news, you get from a debate, you get all the key things. Like we've heard, all the same questions till you're blue in the face. What are you going to do about this? What is your plan for that? Like what? And then they give their
Justin, I'm
answers.
from a middle-class family.
Yeah, they give all their bullshit. But when you have that 3 hour platform like that, you can't do that. And you can't hide how well you know or don't know about certain topics, and your personality comes out, your energy comes out, all these different things come out. And I loved how Joe was talking about everything from like, how Donald was saying how much he thought, how much beauty was in the White House, in the construction of it, and how it was put together in the Lincoln Room. And he made a comment in there. He's like, yeah, I come from a background in luxury construction. That's what they did for a long time at the Trump organization. And so when he goes into the White House, getting to hear from him about that instead of all the normal things, I think that actually played a huge role in people going, okay, this guy is not the crazy lunatic psycho Nazi or whatever that people say he is, because they're able to do that when they just have sound bites, when they can take things out of context, when they can clip all these things together and make them seem really however they want. When you have a 3 hour interview, you can't hide from that stuff. And on the other side, I think that's exactly why Harris did not do it. And it wasn't because of her schedule or any other BS like that. It was because she cannot sit down through a 2 or 3 hour real interview. She's not a real person. She doesn't know these things deep enough to talk about them. She doesn't have the personality. She doesn't have that. Yep. And it was obvious to see, like you said a minute ago, like I come from a middle-class family. She kept just saying these things. And of course, everyone, like I'm not bashing her talking points. If that's what her team came up with and that's what the campaign decided to say all the time, and she was sticking to the plan, okay, I get it. But she wasn't able to go on there because people would have seen this lady really doesn't know what is going on, probably about hardly anything.
Yep.
And that's why she didn't do it. And I think that is why new media is here essentially to stay. And it's things like podcast, and specifically for social media, the platform X. And not just because I'm a big Elon Musk fan, which I am, full disclaimer. I was not ever a fan of Twitter or X. I wasn't a user, I should say. But I got on it over this past election. I was just telling my dad about this today when I saw him at this Veterans Day event. There are things that come up on X when you see them from, let's say, like 20 people that you follow that you trust, whoever it is. I'm talking politics right now. So if you're on the right, think about your top 20 people that you trust, whether it's Charlie Kirk or if it's whoever it is, Alex Jones or whoever. When you see or hear about a rumor of like a headline, something big happening, you can go to X and right away see what all 20 of those people think. And I saw this so many times during the election. I would see something on X and I would go check all the legacy sites. I go check Fox and CNN and MSNBC. I go check them. Wasn't there. And I'm like, is this real? Are these people saying things too early? What's the deal? And I would watch very closely. It would take sometimes an hour or a couple hours, and then it would show up on the big platforms. But over here on X is already old news.
Yep.
And so I was telling my dad that this morning because he likes to stay up to date on stuff. He's retired, he just wants to know what's going on. I was like, you got to be on X because this is where all the real stuff is happening. By the time it gets over to Fox and CNN and all those places, it's already been ran through their departments, their PRs. They put their own spin on it. They're trying to decide how they're going to, angle what people think about it and all that stuff. Yep. On X, tons of independent journals, tons of people that are out there deeply connected to campaigns and all in governments and all that. I mean, there's nothing like X out there. And I just think it's so cool. And I wanted to tie all that together because, Musk, Trump, and Vance, and Gabbard, and RFK were all on Joe Rogan. And the country knows significantly more about them because of it. And some people are saying that like, hey, Harris made a big mistake by not going on Joe Rogan because that didn't get people, give them a chance to know her. I think it's the opposite. If she had gone on, they would have got to know her even more and she would have lost even more. Maybe he would have even lost California and New York. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's really telling, especially when we look at the county election map and realize that 88%, I think it's 87.6. I'm just going to call it 88 because fuck it. 88% of the country.
Yeah.
88% of the country's counties. And if you guys are just listening, I'm showing the county map. And if you haven't seen it, go look up the county map for this past election. And there are no Democrat, quote unquote, like cities even anymore. There's just small little pockets.
That's kind of what I meant. Like with the gains that he got in California alone, like he won, I think like 40% of California.
That's crazy.
That is significant for a Republican.
Yeah. Not since Reagan, probably.
Reagan won it. I think Bush won it also, but it was right after his reelection. It was for his reelection right after 9/11.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I think, but he won the popular vote. I don't think he won California. We got to look it up. But Reagan definitely won California back in the day. But I just think it's great because like the truth is essentially what we are getting more of, and if the other side is yelling shit like misinformation and disinformation, to me, that's a good indicator that we're doing the right things. And time after time after time after time, when all those things are proven to be true and the people that have said it was mis or disinformation are proven wrong, it's like, okay, like I said a minute ago, critical thinking. That's what I'm doing here. You're saying it's bullshit. You're saying it's not. You prove to be right. You prove to be wrong. Well, I'm going to keep leaning this way then. Yeah.
The problem is though, and there is an inherent issue with, being a critical thinker and then looking at the other side and going, why can't you do this? It's because they don't want to. It's a cult, right? It is the leftist cult. I wouldn't even call it a Democrat. It's not Democrat. They're like these liberal weirdo fucking cultists. And these are the ones that are shaving their heads now in solidarity for Kamala Harris or whatever. Or like getting a fucking some kind of a blue tattoo wristband or whatever because they think their rights are going to go away. Yeah. And it's like, it's a mind virus. It really is. It's like this weird fucking mind virus that if you scroll on TikTok for more than 5 minutes, you realize where it comes from.
Yeah.
But, it's just that they don't want to critical think. That's the problem.
No, and it's not like, and this is why I said a few minutes ago, like how he won popular vote and electoral vote and Senate and House and all these gains with all these demographics and all these different groups of people. So the people now that are freaking out and can't believe people voted like that, it's like, well, hey, read the room.
Yeah.
Most of the country went this way. Like,
yep.
Most of it.
Well, they
in
literally,
every way you look at it.
Literally, this is the I can't remember where I saw this. It was a pretty prominent news show earlier, and it was like the messaging from the left now is, but he didn't win the popular vote by very much. And it's like, holy crap, we're gonna split hairs now like that. Like,
they're just doing what they think they need to do. They're just gonna stay super partisan. And like if you think about it like this, like I don't even really get upset at people to say stuff like that because that's their job. Like it's their job to be a partisan. It's not necessarily even a bad thing. People get paid to be a partisan. You know what I mean? So, but that's their job to now find an angle to try to talk smack about the other side. And so whatever they come up with, it's just like, okay, whatever. That's just what you're supposed to do. Like, that's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know how you go home and sleep at night, but it's like, I'm not really getting emotionally stirred up by that because it's like, you're just doing what you need to do. I know you're wrong. The data proves it. My own brain proves it. So, whatever, have fun. Keep digging your own hole. You know what I mean? But dude, there's one other thing that I'd like to touch on about politics. And then we got to talk about some other stuff like seed oils and what RFK is getting into and stuff like that. Cause there's so many, again, as we go forward with this, every single person listening, make sure you apply critical thinking to all this stuff. Don't just take my word for anything or Adam's word for anything. Like whatever Adam is going to say about seed oils here in a few minutes, go look what other people say about it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Look at other people say about it. Read, do all your things. And I'm not even going to say do your own research because I think that's just people kind of glossy eye over that on purpose, which makes sense. But make your own opinion, make your own decisions.
When your research is a Google search, like that's most of the time when I say something that I know is a fact and somebody comes back at me with with an issue with it, and their research is a Google search and it's the first thing that comes up on Google. It's like, how do you even argue with that? Because you don't want to know the truth. And that's, again, therein lies the problem where it's like, you don't want to know the truth. You don't care to know the truth because the truth is going to hurt you in some way. Like, talking into your phone and having Siri give you the quickest answer in 0.5 seconds is not research. Yeah. Like old school research was going to old libraries and actually reading books and source materials and stuff for weeks, months, or years. That is research. Mm-hmm. So your quick little one-liner on Google is no, that ain't cutting it. Why do you think I have so many books? Sorry, cutting it. You are the book master, that's for sure. So here's one thing I learned recently that's super cool. Here's what a transition team does for a president. In all previous administrations, when they come in, essentially what happens is the transition is funded by some sort of government entity. I forget what it's called now. Like you can kind of look at it as like a bonus for winning the presidency. They select, I think it's 30 people to be on their transition team that are like industry kind of experts in all these different areas. Like someone's from farming, someone's from pharma, someone's from military industrial complex, somebody's from, who knows, someone's a builder, like all these different things. They're all on the same team as the president that won, but then they all have to go in there and kind of fight for their position. What's going to get funded? What's going to be at the top of the agenda? Like really help mold what can be done for this administration. And previously in other administrations, it has been 100% lobbyist in there. And if you think who a lobbyist is, well, they are experts in their fields, but they're also there because they're getting paid a tremendous amount of money to be there by the fields they represent. What's different about this one is Trump and his team raised private money many months ago during the campaign to fund the transition themselves. So they don't have to have any government money coming in to try to pay for it. And there are 0 lobbyists on the team. 2 of the transition members also are RFK and Tulsi Gabbard. So I think that's so cool because it's the most clear classic example of the way it was done before was big government, lobbyist, big money, big interest. You guys fight for which group has the most money and the most power, and that's going to start to shape what this new president does.
Now it's nope, no lobbyists, people that are real successful in the real world in their own lanes are coming in now, privately funded, to help set a real agenda for Trump and Team Trump, which I think is incredible. Just think about how different that is. All government, big government, lobbyist bullshit. That's what keeps pulling us into all these fucking wars. That's what's getting everybody sick. That's what's doing all this stuff that doesn't make any sense in the name of money and power and influence and corruption. They basically said from day one, even with the transition, not doing any of that. We're doing this with real people only and our own private money.
Well, if anybody remembers, a couple of years ago, I think it was in 2016, when Trump was going through the transition the first time that he won the presidency, Putin famously said, all that stuff, I'm going to paraphrase him, but Putin basically said, all that stuff's nice that Trump said until the men with the briefcases come in and tell him how it really is. Mm-hmm. These are the men with the briefcases. These fucking lobbyists, the GSA, which is what you're talking about. The GSA gets funded by lobbyists, and those lobbyists mostly come from big pharma, which is kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
They mostly come from big pharma. So the pharmaceutical companies are paying for the GSA to go through the transition for, and place, there's like 10,000 appointments that the president has to make when he gets into office. And he relies on, or usually the president relies on the GSA to make those appointments because that's the transition team. It's the way that it's quote unquote always been done, right? Mm-hmm. But all that money comes from lobbyists. So you have to understand that this money is coming from people who are directly funded by big pharma, directly funded by fucking the FDA, from fucking the oil companies, like from all these people
Lockheed and
that have a vested interest in whatever their thing is. So they have a vested interest in, like big pharma is a perfect example. They have a vested interest in keeping the American population sick and dying, but not dead. Because if we die, they lose a customer. But if we stay sick, they keep a customer for life.
Keep us dependent on them. Mm-hmm. Because, you don't have to look very far to see that there is a pill for literally everything.
And then there's a pill for the side effects of that pill.
Totally. Yeah. One pill starts it, whatever your thing is. It's like, ooh, cool. This person just got sick with whatever, Crohn's or diabetes or whatever. So we're going to start you on this thing. And then when that gives you issues, they don't say this, of course, but when the next issues pop up, we actually have something for that. And we have something for that too. And before you know it, you're like, my grandfather was, before he passed, unfortunately, having like just a whole smorgasbord of pills. Now, I take a lot of supplements. None of them are pharma. Mm-hmm. There are things like calcium and fiber and B complex and DIM and like these, they're vitamins. They're supplements.
And you wouldn't need all that stuff if the fucking nutrients were still in the food.
That's a whole other thing with the food. That's exactly right. We talk about that a ton, in Earn It All Health and in our Earn Your Booze coaching program is we are really not set up for success with our health in this country currently with food quality. Think about how many things are so easy to grab off the shelf and they taste amazing. Mm-hmm. Think of your favorite protein bar or your favorite, or your favorite beef snack or your favorite chips or your favorite, even if it's protein chips, whatever. Mm-hmm. All of that stuff that just tastes amazing and is so convenient is basically a chemical research product. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It's all developed. Like if you pick up something that says that it's, rainbow cinnamon peanut butter mocha latte protein bar, well, none of those things that I just said are in that bar. So how does it taste like that? Why does it look like a rainbow? It's because it's all chemicals.
Why is the first ingredient canola oil?
Yeah, it's all engineered in a lab to taste amazing and be super convenient, but it is not good for our health. Back to what you're saying about the food.
Yeah.
And this is why, we really help our people that want to get healthy, like really understand how much of an uphill battle we have. Food, water even. Mm-hmm. RFK is supposedly going to tell Trump to take fluoride out of all municipal water supplies right away, which is phenomenal. We can dive into that if you want. But then also like our digital environment, you're wearing blue light blockers right now because blue light is wrecking people's sleep. And sleep is everything. Mm-hmm. People don't realize how much comes from sleep. It's your muscle recovery. It's your cognitive recovery. It's basically everything. You can fight disease. You can do all these things by having proper sleep, but we kind of demonize sleep in the hustle culture name. And we just say, no, just drink more caffeine, get up early, do all this and that. But my point here is that you mentioned food. food is definitely one part of the pyramid, of one part of the puzzle rather, that is just really setting us up to not be healthy. Which is why I'm such a big fan to see what RFK is going to do by going in and taking an axe to things like the FDA and the USDA and CDC and all these companies all these divisions that are,
they're basically companies.
Yeah, they're companies essentially. I mean, but they're so corrupt to the point to where, like you were just saying, rightfully so, they are able to have influence in areas that they have nothing to do with. You know, like why would pharma be able to pay so much money to make, foreign policy decisions? Why would pharma be able to help decide who's going to come in and be in charge of the border? And that's the way this thing used to work. Whoever paid the most had the most influence. And so that's why you get these people that are like, you're like, how in the world did somebody appoint this person? What, this person can't even tie their freaking shoes. What are they doing being in charge of anything? Well, and a lot of that comes from this corrupt money that looks like it is now going to be able to be chopped out, thankfully.
And it's not just at the top either. It's not just the president or the vice president or anything like that. It's in Congress too. If you talk to any congressional member or Senate like member or House member, in order to get put on a committee, you have to pay. It's literally pay to play. And nobody seems to give a fuck about that.
Yeah.
Nobody seems to care. I just heard Eli Crane, your buddy Eli.
Yeah.
I just heard him on, I think he was on Sean Ryan or something.
Sean Ryan
he was talking about this. He was like, in order to get on a committee, we would have to pay. And Sean was like, how much money do you need? Basically, like, I got some friends, like, we'll get you. And he goes, it still wouldn't work because even if you pay all the money, you're not towing the line. And you have, in order to get on a committee, you have to toe the line and pay the money. And it's like, I'm just so glad. And I hope, and I could just hope that, the people that we have going in there now with the team that we have going in there now just puts an axe to all of it.
Yeah. And you nailed it. You
term limits on congressional members, like just axes all of it because, and people are like, they feel bad for these, these government employees. And yeah, it sucks. Like you had a great GS-13 job that paid you $150,000 a year for you to work from home and do nothing. Here's my thought on that. Fuck you. Go get another job. If you have so many good skills, if you went to college and you have all these skills and you got a degree and all this stuff, cool, go find another job.
Should be easy.
Yeah. Should be easy. But, I don't feel bad whatsoever. It's like, no, we need to put an axe to it because that is how you really turn things around and start pushing them in the right direction. I want to go back real quick. You were talking about the big pharma and the pill for the pill, right? There's a famous example of this. And I can't remember what company it was that originally created sildenafil, Viagra, but they're also the company that created the first statin drug. They were going to release Viagra as a blood pressure medication because at 10 milligrams, it lowers your blood pressure, systolic and diastolic blood pressure. It's great vasodilator, right? But they kept it on the shelf because they knew their new statin drug was going to cause impotence. They knew their new statin drug was going to cause you to not be able to get an erection. And they're like, oh shit, a side effect of our new blood pressure medication at higher dosages is basically uncontrollable raging erections. Cool. So they waited 6 years after their statin drugs were out and people were seeing these negative effects. They didn't know it was the statin drugs. Big Pharma knew though. And then they released Viagra. And it's like, think about all these drugs that show up. If you watch television, I don't watch TV. I don't even have a TV in my new place.
I said one comment about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wood chipper.
Wood chipper. Fucking wood chipper. Yep. Done deal.
That's it. That was my whole comment.
Problem solved. Yeah. But I don't even own a TV anymore. But here's the thing. If you watch TV, if you watch like, I don't know, CBS or whatever, there's a commercial every 17 seconds, it seems like. And those commercials are 90% big pharma.
Yeah.
The next drug for the next thing. And it's somebody out in the field, happy, laughing, and it's for like genital warts or something. But like the side effects are, and they say them really fast at the end. And it's like, and the last one's like end death. It's like, oh, cool. So, but anyways, my point on all that is like, this just keeps happening. And we need somebody to go in there who's got balls to go, no, this isn't going to happen anymore. We're going to cut funding for this. We're going to cut funding for this. We're going to cut funding for this. And, all these people are talking about Trump's tax plan to use tariffs instead of, taxes on all this stuff. They're like, he's going to add $7 trillion to the national deficit or whatever. And it's like, listen, if we cut these agencies that we don't need and cut the fat out of all this stuff, we're going to be up $14 trillion. So like, it's just wild to me that it's gotten so bad and that we've allowed it to get so bad. But I'm glad that we are, cognizant of it at least.
Yeah. And when it comes to those tariffs, dude, people need to stay curious. Like I said earlier, you don't know.
Yeah.
You random people out there in random people land have no fucking clue what a tariff is actually going to do. How much of a tariff on what kind of product is going to equal what in your life? You have no clue. Nobody freaking knows. Okay. So like these people that are getting so fired up about tariffs, like, oh yeah, cool. Tell me exactly why you're an expert in those tariffs. I'm not even saying that what I've heard from Trump about tariffs is 100%, but he hasn't committed 100% to any of that shit. So we have to stay curious and be open. If we want to get out of an uncontrollable, like the Federal Reserve just said this, that we are on a path right now that is unsustainable for the debt in this country. So what that tells me is that we need to stay open-minded and curious about ways to fix that. And if the guy who just won is saying that tariffs is a way to, to counteract that, okay, let's learn more. But having a yes or a no or a hell yes or a hell no opinion right off the bat, especially from someone's, couch at home, is just stupid.
Step one, get rid of the Federal Reserve because it is not a government agency. This is going to be very controversial for people who don't understand this. The Federal Reserve is not a government agency. It is a private bank.
It is.
It is a private bank.
Did you hear the Fed chairman the other day?
Oh, yeah.
So the other day, in case people didn't know this, there was a press conference. What's the guy's? Maybe you can look it up. What's the guy's name? He's the head of the Federal Reserve right now. And a reporter asked him, he goes, hey, whatever his guy's name is, sir, if President Trump asks you to resign, like a lot of people have been saying that he might, will you step down? And he said, no. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, can you elaborate? Like, do you feel like you don't need to legally step down? And he's just, no. So that should clear up any misconceptions of whether or not the Federal Reserve is part of the U.S. government or not. If the number one dude, the chief executive of the country, the president, cannot affect somebody who's in charge of that department, and he's saying that, nope, sorry, that's outside of the legality of what can be done. To your point, like, yeah, it's not.
He's an investment banker called Jerome Powell.
That's right. Yeah, Powell. Yeah. That's right.
And in 1913, this country started going downhill in 1913 due to the Federal Reserve Act. When we gave the country's money away, essentially, we went from being on a gold standard to a central bank.
Yeah.
And our founding fathers literally said, not 100 years before that, do not
do that.
Have a central bank, because fucking England, like, they have a central bank, and all these other like as soon as you have the central bank, your country goes to shit.
If anyone's interested in this, read The Creature from Jekyll Island, the book. That is where this went down. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island. But what people need to realize is this level of corruption that we are just now starting to see is the tip of the iceberg for the federal government. It's been like this for an extremely long time, back to what you just said, back to 1913, when this whole Federal Reserve thing was cooked up, if that's the correct date. But Federal Reserve aside, the government is just like any other business in a way, right? And like, imagine how many people rage against big corporations. Like, the left has been screaming about corporations, actually kind of rightfully so, for a long time.
Not anymore.
Like, not anymore. Now they love them. But because of the corruption that does come from high levels of power, influence, and money, the government has more high-level power, influence, and money than anybody. So why would we think that there's no corruption in the federal government? And why would we think it's even a little bit? We are talking the United States of America, which is the number one dog on the planet. And we have always been, essentially, since our foundation, after, winning of the world wars and all this stuff. Like, we're the top dog on the planet. And we can make an argument about China economics and whatever, but that's over now. You don't think that the number one biggest dude on the block has any sort of temptation or corruption and has never had it? We don't think that pharma, that has all these trillions of dollars in the military industrial complex, which I actually have a large background in for 14 years, all these different corporations and industries have no influence on the US government? Of course they do. So people have to realize that the corruption is extremely deep and it needs to be weeded out, especially now that dude Powell has even said that, hey, we are on a path that is unsustainable. Mm-hmm. Our economy is not growing fast enough to support this debt. We keep adding more to it. And it's at some point, it's not going to work anymore. We have to do something. So people need to stay open-minded. Now that we have dudes, like, we just got a 6-pack of presidents in, like, for the price of one. We got Donald Trump. JD Vance, I'm actually very impressed with now after listening to him. If anyone doesn't know anything about JD Vance or thinks I'm being stupid about it, all you got to do is go listen to Joe Rogan and JD Vance talk.
Or anywhere that he's talked.
I think, I think
he has a TED talk that he did like 10 years ago that was phenomenal. Okay. Also,
yeah, listen to that too. Listen to all the sources. Don't just take my word for it. Like I said earlier, go listen to him talk, and he's probably going to sound different than how headlines have made you, think about him. But we got Trump, Vance, RFK. Are you kidding me? Robert Kennedy Jr. Okay, we got him. He's been a presidential candidate, obviously. Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Elon Musk. I think he's definitely one of the smartest guys on the planet, currently the richest guy on the planet. He is almost solely responsible for taking humans to another planet, making humans interplanetary. I think we're going in 2 years to Mars. Yep. I think it's the first unmanned trip.
2026.
Yeah. Once the alignment with Mars and Earth lines up again, we're launching. I think unmanned the first time. And then I think the one after that is going to have humans on it. Like, dude, Elon's making that happen, but he's also killing it. This is probably not news to anyone listening, but think about what he's done in the automotive space. He made electric cars cool. And now he's in all these different things with AI, Neuralink. He's building tunnels. He bought X and literally saved free speech, basically all by himself. That dude is on this team with these 5 other presidential candidates. We now have a 6-pack of presidents that can go out there and make real change in the country. This is way different than before. When somebody like Obama won or Bush won or Clinton won or someone like that, it was like, okay, let's get them in office on January 20th and see what they do. Let's see who they select for their cabinet. Let's see what kind of influence they can have on the Congress. Let's see how effective they can be and what they actually do. Dude, like, the way this is going right now, especially if we have a House majority, on day one, on January 20th, there's probably going to be 5, 6, or 7 bills ready for him to sign that have already gone through the process on day one.
Yep.
And I already talked about the transition team being completely privately funded, no lobbyists. And now you got RFK over here just dropping nukes. You got Elon over here chopping trillions of dollars out of the budget. You've got Gabbard and all these people doing their things.
Don't forget Ron Paul.
We didn't even talk about Ron Paul. And it's kind of surprising because we talked about the Fed a little bit. Anyways, this is not just supposed to be like a Donald Trump rah, rah, rah thing, but I'm really super fired up about the possibility of having real change in the government. Because if we don't change, we cannot keep going like this. Again, Powell even said it the other day. We cannot keep going down this path of just spending and not taking things seriously. And I think the easiest way to make change in regards to how much the government is spending and how much we're adding to our debt is to chop all the crap out of government, all the corruption, all the bureaucracy, all the BS, the bloated, everything in there. And again, I was in that world for 14 years. I did 4 years in the Navy, and I did 10 years at Lockheed Martin working a bunch of classified programs on fighter jets. And I saw so many, I'll just give you a little example. The little bolts, the pieces that go into the price of this airplane is out of control. We used to have these jokes, and this was like a decade ago. You know what I mean? Like a long time, 10, 15 years ago.
Lowest bidder.
Yeah. Oh, no, not even lowest bidder. It was highest bidder. So we used to make a joke that oh, cool, man, why does this bolt cost $500? Oh, someone's uncle owns a bolt company.
Yep.
Why does this little hydraulic flange over here cost $5,278 when it's it's nothing, and I know it's super lightweight and everything, and there's a lot of science in it, but it's still because someone's uncle had a hydraulic flange company. The price of these jets is is astronomically high because they're able to get away with it, and they've been able to get away with it.
And there's only 4 or 5 contractors now that are allowed to sell anything to the government, which is a monopoly and stupid.
Totally.
And it's insane how that whole thing works. So it's like, you know, if you come up with a better bolt, right, Lockheed's just going to buy it and then sell it to the government for $500.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
and I even remember last time Trump was president, he went to Lockheed, who I worked for 10 years, and was like, hey, you know, the price of these jets, that needs to drop by whatever it was, 30 million or something. It was significant. And they were like, CEO's like, what do we? Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean you can do that? Shit, that means we were getting ripped off.
Yep.
And this is just a small example of what happens across the board with every industry you can imagine. And every industry goes through the government, by the way.
Yep.
But like just my example that I gave you about the fighter jets, way overpriced. I mean, they're phenomenal. And I can make a huge case. I could talk for an hour about why we need to maintain air superiority. Like we just have to have that, and space superiority. But my point is that this is such a cool opportunity for us to finally take an axe to all the BS in government and see what we can do running it like a business, running it how Elon Musk would run it how Donald Trump would run it financially. Like get this thing, this government, which is a business, running the right way. And all Americans are going to benefit with that.
End the Fed, implement tariffs, put us back on the gold standard, and that's it. Like just those 3 things.
I think I think that's one of the neatest things. I can't wait to see what Ron Paul says about it, because I feel like, you know, we talked about power and corruption. Where would you think like the real power lies? Like it's with the people that make the money.
Not allowed to say it on YouTube.
Yeah, they set monetary policy. So I think that is going to be a fascinating thing to see what is even accomplishable there, because that's going to be so crazy. But I think we should talk a couple of health things real quick.
Yeah, let's do it. I want one more thing. Yeah. I would say, actually, I want to retract my gold statement. I would say put us back in the gold standard, but we don't have any gold anymore because China has all of it.
Okay.
So,
well, we need to figure that shit out.
Yeah.
But again, stay curious, think critically. Don't take anything we're saying for granted. Hey, he said that.
Open up Fort Knox and let us
think about it.
Let us see how much gold we have. Cool. We don't have any.
Yeah.
That's a whole fucking conspiracy we could talk about.
Oh no, for sure. We should do a whole conspiracy podcast. So one thing I want to talk about, Adam, is off-label use of like things like peptides. I recently got on 4 different peptides. 2 to help heal my back and my bicep tendon. Bicep tendon is completely back to normal. I feel great. I can do whatever I want. BPC 157 and TB 500. And then I'm also taking 2 other ones to help me with some muscle retention, because I've just been a classic hard gainer my whole life. Eat, train forever, and still lose weight. Like it drives me nuts. And so I got on hexarelin and sermorelin. And those are pharmaceutical grade real peptides that we get from our partner at Elevation Health. I feel good putting those in my body because I know they're real. I know they're coming from a lab. They come directly from the lab to me. They're prescribed by our doctors at Elevation. I have you backing me up saying, yep, that's good to take it. Here's what to do with it. And we have a real protocol. But a lot of people are not going that route, and they're buying kind of off-label, kind of dark gray website, you know, for $30 or $40 a bottle. And while that might seem neat because like, hey, cool, I can get that thing that's going to help me with whatever, and it's only $50 or $40, dude, you got to be really careful about what you're putting in your body, especially injecting something directly into your bloodstream. It's going around surrounding your brain. Like the last thing I want is some cheap anything in my body, especially if it's being injected. So like Ozempic is a really bad one, and like and cortisol face, and there's a couple things, but like we got to make sure that people understand what they're putting in their body and what's real and what's not. And dude, there's so many lawsuits coming now about the severe side effects of like fake Ozempic or real Ozempic and all that. So what do you want to tell us about that? I saw
a really funny post on X the other day, and it said, I'm going to get on Ozempic, not because I need it, but because I know the payouts from the lawsuits in a couple of years are going to be insane.
Oh my God.
And I couldn't help but laugh because it's true. It's 100% true. The lawsuits are already happening because they're already using something like Ozempic, which is a GLP-1 agonist, a glucagon-like peptide, which stimulates a bunch of different stuff. It stimulates your glucagon pathways and stuff like that. but that's not all that it does. There's a ton of side effects from these drugs. And it's one of the reasons why it wasn't used for its on-label use very much, which was for morbid obesity and diabetes. And it wasn't really used that much because of the host of side effects that it had. Side effects like muscle tissue loss, side effects like fucking your peristalsis in your stomach, which is like your body's way of chiming up food.
Mm-hmm.
Like that can be paralyzed by it, like stuff like that. They weren't using it that much. And this happens in pharma every 10 or 15 years or so. They repurpose a drug because they have too much on the shelves and they need to get rid of it. Whatever reason, right? Whatever reason they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
They repurpose a drug. So, 5 years ago or whatever, they're like, hey, weight loss. And it's like, there's an obesity problem. 70+% of Americans are obese. Well, let's give them a fucking obesity drug. And it's like, oh, we repurposed Ozempic and Mounjaro and semaglutide and all this crap. They're like, hey, it'll help you lose weight. And then Hollywood got behind it. Everybody started losing weight on it. And you could tell who's taking it because one of the interesting side effects is called Ozempic face. Yeah. And you start losing the muscle tissue in your face, your masseter muscles, like the muscles that go in your face right here. You start losing that muscle tissue even before you start losing fat. So what's going to happen is your face is going to sink in and you're going to start looking like you should be on Halloween decoration, right? And you could just look at any of these Hollywood fucks and you could see, oh, yeah, that's Ozempic. Oh, yeah, that's Ozempic. Oh, yeah, and it's being marketed as this like, oh, easy, simple, easy pill, easy button, right? 10 years ago, it was phentermine. 10 years before that, it was fen, which was another version of phentermine. A couple years before that, it was whatever, right? The fucking Hollywood diet, whatever. It's just a repurposing of something that doesn't work anyways. So, everybody wants the easy button. Everybody wants the thing, right? That's not what these peptides should be used for, right? I'm on a protocol myself. My protocol is vastly different from yours because we don't have the same goals. We don't have the same things going on. I'm dealing with mold toxicity right now. So I'm on a whole mold toxicity protocol for mitochondrial health. Right now, I have three different peptides that I'm taking. I'm taking glutathione, which is our body's natural like antioxidant. So it's to boost the actual antioxidant like content in my body because my body's toxic right now. Another one is SS31, which is for mitochondrial health. And then another one is CJC ipamorelin, which is a growth hormone secretagogue. Because when we did my blood work, I'm 36 years old. My IGF-1, my growth hormone, my growth factor, my natural growth hormone in my body was almost nothing. So, and these are all issues stemming from mold toxicity. So we're using the peptides as a crutch until I can walk again, which is what they should be used for. We're using them as a crutch and as a bridge. So now that I'm away from the mold, I'm away from that stuff, I can, I take these things as a crutch to help me walk again. And that's what things like this should be used for. This is vastly different from something like hormone replacement therapy. Hormone replacement therapy is lifelong, unfortunately. Right now, we don't know how to get your body to naturally produce testosterone again in your 70s, right? Yeah, there's cool stuff like in clomiphene that shows, promise on stuff like that. And, Chirexin is a new orally bioavailable TRT alternative, right? Mm-hmm. That works really well, apparently. But again, like people use, and supplementation is the same thing, right? You're saying, hey, I'm doing all these supplements, right? I'm on a completely different supplement protocol, and it's only because I have mold toxicity and there's certain things happening in my body, in my blood work that myself and the doctors at Elevation Health, again, this isn't a plug, but it's kind of a plug, right? We targeted and keyed in on these things and said, okay, here's some key supplementation that we need to use. I don't like taking supplements. I don't like taking a bunch of pills all the time. I want to get everything that I can, as much as I can in food and stuff like that, naturally. But when I need it, like right now, of course I'm going to take it as a bridge and as a crutch until I can walk again.
Yeah.
Hyperbolic walk, right? Like not actual walk. I can walk fine.
Yeah, for sure. Well, along those lines, there's been a lot of people claiming to fix a lot of health issues by doing the carnivore diet. And I think he's pretty interesting. Like sure. Sean Baker, I followed him for a long time. He swears by it, and he posts a lot of cool research and before and afters and this and that of people that are able to get rid of all sorts of disease by it.
Sure.
But it's interesting because he goes completely against what, the food pyramid before it was completely debunked had said and all that. So like, what are your thoughts on carnivore? And second part of the question would be like, how would somebody know if they would be a good candidate to try it?
Carnivore is great if you want to be a carnivore forever.
What if someone says, hey, I want to do it for 3 months?
So here's where something like a carnivore diet or a super restrictive diet can be beneficial, right? As like a reset.
Mm-hmm.
If you want a total reset of your body, you can do, as long as you're getting the nutrients, right? And with the carnivore diet, it's easy to get the nutrients because mostly red meat is super nutrient dense and nutrient rich. And if somebody's doing the carnivore diet correctly, they're probably eating a lot of eggs, which are super nutrient rich. They're probably eating a lot of meat, which is super nutrient rich,
including creatine,
getting all these things that their body needs, right? And not getting inflammatory seed oils and not getting a bunch of carbohydrates and not getting, all this, not to say that carbohydrates are bad because they're not. It's not the carbohydrates' fault. It's your body's metabolism's fault for not being, flexible enough to handle carbohydrates when you eat them. And it's because you've probably been eating too much bullshit over the last 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. Your body doesn't know what to do with this stuff. So when somebody does a carnivore diet, you're taking your body through essentially like a reset, And I used to use the carnivore diet as a reset for people, for clients and things, but I don't anymore. I use more of a targeted, it's animal based, but with key things added, things like sauerkraut, things like blueberries, stuff like that are super antioxidant rich, super nutrient rich. And I know that, these are the things that a person's body needs in order to operate the right way and, effectively, efficiently, and at the highest level. So I think if you want to do carnivore, the problem is if Sean Baker, if Sean Baker ate a piece of pizza, it might fucking kill him. Like he would be fucked up for days and days and days.
Yeah.
For a couple reasons. Number one, his stomach, like the lining in his stomach isn't optimized for carbohydrates and all that stuff right now, and for the sugars, and his microbiome is probably optimized for, to break down amino acids and not, carbohydrates. And his body's main fuel source is through gluconeogenesis and not regular metabolism of carbohydrates. Like if you go all in on something like that, then you have to be all in on it. I see these people online trying to do carnivore, but also still drink on the weekends
and keto
and also
too.
and like keto, but they're only keto for like Monday to Thursday. And then they go drink and all this stuff. And it's like, no. You're using this as the wrong. If you're using it for a tool, use it as the tool. Again, use it as a crutch until you can walk again. Right?
This is what happens with fasting too. People are like, oh, I'm doing intermittent fasting. Okay, cool. Tell me, like, when do you start to eat? Well, I don't eat anything between this period and this period. I just have like an egg, or I just put a little creamer in my coffee. Like, well, you're not fasting anymore.
Nope.
You're not doing it the right way. You're not all in on it. So if you're doing carnivore, keto, fasting, like make sure you understand how to do it and then do it the right way. Otherwise, I mean, especially when it comes to keto, cool, I can eat cheese and sour cream and all this. And it's like, well, if you're doing it wrong, you're just eating like a fat ass, like you got to do it the right way.
Yeah. And I would rather somebody eat whatever they wanted, but be mindful about it.
Yeah.
And stay within, their calories and just make better choices on the individual foods than somebody go completely the opposite way and say, I'm only going to eat ribeyes forever. And it's like, you're probably going to be missing some stuff.
Yeah.
It's not going to work out very well for you because a couple of reasons. Number one, socially, you're fucked. You can never go out ever again. And when you do go out to a restaurant and have a ribeye, they cook it in bullshit. So now you have to be mindful about what they're cooking it in. And now you have to be mindful about the, the quality of the meat and all this stuff. And it's like, no, just make better choices.
Yeah.
Like that's it. We can go down the rabbit hole on seed oils and like optimal stuff, right? And I think I used to have this problem too. I tried to optimize everything and I ended up optimizing nothing because I wasn't focused on one thing. And it's like focus on the one thing first. And this is where, actually all of the most successful like people who talk health and stuff like that, the Gary Breccas and things like that, people make fun of him all the time for, well, all he's doing is telling you to get sunlight and breathe and sleep better and fuck, and it's like, weird. Those are the things
you should
that
be
work,
doing that. Yeah.
Or, somebody will laugh at me for wearing these glasses. I used to laugh at people for wearing these glasses until I did the research for myself. And also until I saw the effects of myself on myself. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, I'm blue light toxic. I sit behind a computer screen a lot. I'm inside a lot. I wasn't getting a lot of sun. So when I focus on one thing, I see increases or decreases in certain places. So just focus on one thing at a time.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. And speaking of making better choices, the best choice you can make right now is to go to earnitall.com and check out the Earn Your Booze coaching program. Check out our Top Shelf Health program partnered with Elevation Health that we just talked about with peptides and our MDs and true blood work and understanding how healthy your brain is, how healthy your gut is, all of that kind of stuff. And we're coming up on the holiday season. Grab yourself an Earn Your Booze shirt and Earn It All hat for you, your friend, your coworkers, your roommates, whoever's in your life, you guys that are out there just working your ass off. Make sure you're proud of it. Have a good time. Earn and enjoy everything. So go check out earnitall.com. Thank you for following and subscribing and sharing this podcast. We appreciate you.
Yep. And
Cheers.
the Fed. And the Fed.
And the Fed. Cheers.